Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought we'd create a simple card, and I'm creating with what I've got on my desk, which is several colours of Distress Oxide. I've also got a couple of my stamps, and I've got a piece of Pink Frog super smooth card, 4 inches by 6 inches, and hopefully next week I should have this card available on my website in packs of 4 by 6 inches, so that'll be quite handy. So I'm going to do something really simple, nothing too complicated at all. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Moments in Time TE25. It always reminds me of a vintage sort of light bulb. So I'm going to use TE25, and you can see TE25, it has got the larger and the smaller bauble, and we've also got a stencil to coordinate with these, which is SS8 and 9. So let's take an acrylic block. I don't think we need anything bigger, so that's perfect. And I'm going to begin by stamping with the mustard seed. So I'm going to take mustard seed Distress Oxide, and I'm just going to ink the stamp. Now, it doesn't have to be inked fully. I just need the shape, so it doesn't need to be inked fully. And then I'm just going to decide which way. Let's have that one that way, and we'll have that one there. So I'm just stamping with the mustard seed. So a little bit of mustard seed. There we go. So we've just got the shape of the light bulb. And then I'm going to, because I'm going to go to the blue, I'm just going to give that a little bit of a wipe. Now you could do a second card at the same time if you wish. I'm then going to ink the next one with Salty Ocean, which is a blue. Let me just move this along so you can see what I am doing. And I'm sort of just inking the edge of the stamp. So that's with Salty Ocean. And I'm just inking that with the blue. And let's have this one like this, like so. And these are reactive with water, so that means I can add more colours. So I've got the Salty Ocean. Again, let's give that a little bit of a wipe. And then I'm going to use Candied Apple. Use a little bit of Candied Apple. There we go. And if you wanted to, this could be like a masculine Christmas card if you wanted it to, or just a fun birthday card, however you sort of want to take that design. So now we've got the Candied Apple, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of a wipe. And then I'm going to use Cracked Pistachio. Let's use Cracked Pistachio. And I'm obviously going to colour these a little bit as well. But you can see that if you didn't want to use the whole light bulb, you don't have to. So let's have that one down here, like so. There we go. So then we've got the Cracked Pistachio. Again, I shall give that a little bit of a wipe. Not that this is actually wet in the slightest. That's because I'm at the end of the packet and it's super dry. So let's try again. Just to give that a little bit of a wipe. Just to make sure that colour isn't on there. And then I'm going to use Seedless Preserves. So we just give that a little bit of an inking. And again, I am just getting the shape of the light bulb. So let's have that one there, like so. There we So now what we can do is we can colour these a little bit. So let's just, and every time you do that, it'll look different. You can see that's taken all the black ink off from before as well. And that's the only time I clean my stamps, is if I use the Oxide ink. So I'm going to take the mustard seed. So we'll have a little bit of mustard seed, and to add a little bit of darkness, we'll have spiced marmalade. Let's have a little bit of spiced marmalade. And then we need some water, does help. So let's grab some water. So just adding my water here, and we'll just pick up some of that water. And the key thing here, which Tracy hasn't got, is some kitchen roll. So let's grab the kitchen roll. There we go. So I've got a little bit of water. My kitchen roll should I need to dab off. And then what I'm going to do is just sort of blend out the colour that is there. So it's wonderful because it colours really easily. It doesn't take much pressure at all. So just sort of blend that out. And the fact that you've got little marks and everything sort of really adds to it. So let's just sort of leave that a little bit of white. And then what I'm going to do is just touch the water, and then I'm going to pick up some of the spice marmalade. It was, wasn't it? Yes, spice marmalade. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of the spiced marmalade. Let's pick up a little bit more and just give it a little bit of sort of depth with the spiced marmalade. Just giving it a little bit of depth with that spiced marmalade. And you can always add a little bit more moisture and just blend the edges out so that you've got no harsh edges. So we'll just come in with that spiced marmalade again, and we'll just add a little bit more of the spiced marmalade. So we're just sort of building up the depth with that spiced marmalade. So just to give it a little bit more depth and shading, just so that it's got a little bit more life to that. And we'll just leave that like that. And then I'm just going to wipe up the water. Seems a shame to waste this, but I need it to dry a little bit, so I need to move on to the next colours. You could literally have some acrylic blocks and lay out your little colour palettes if you wish, or just have a little watercolour palette just on the side. So I'm going to pick up the water again, and this time I'm going to just take the blue, and we're just going to blend that out, sort of blending the blue out. Just till you've got nothing. And then we can take a little bit more of the salty ocean. A little bit of the salty ocean. Let's pick that up and let's just blend a little bit more of the colour of the salty ocean. And I always like to let things rest a little bit, because it just gives them time to dry a little bit, and then you can come in and add more depths of colour. What I like to do is I like to use the tinted water as well, just sort of to blend out the colour a little bit. So I do like to do that. Then I want to add a little bit more darkness to that. So I'm going to add prize ribbon. You can see how little colour we're actually using on there. So we can use the prize ribbon and we can just give a little bit more depth to the prize ribbon. Just to give the light bulb a little bit more depth, a little bit more water. There we go. And then just take off the excess, just so that we don't have too much. You don't want the colour to run away with you. And then just use the tinted water. Let's just clean that a bit. So use the lighter colour, then just to blend the edges out. So I'm just leaving a little bit of the white, just a little bit in the centre area. I can add some with paint or whatever. So you can have separate brushes ready so that you don't have to do what I'm doing. So you can have a little acrylic block with each colour on if you wish. So I'm just going to take a little bit of water again, and then we'll just blend out the candied apple. So we're just going to blend out the candied apple like we did previously. And again, just leave a little bit of the white area. I can add a little bit more depth with the red. So let's take the red. And then we can just add a little bit more. Let's pick some more up, a little bit more water. And I do touch it on my kitchen roll just so that I don't end up getting too much too soon. And I'm just using the fine brush just to give me a little bit more of the colour. And at the moment it's just sort of that base colour. And I'm not using much ink at all. And now, because the red is quite a strong colour, I need to make sure that all that pigment has gone from the red. We've then got the cracked pistachio. So let's add a little bit of the cracked pistachio. And this is a paler colour. So let's just blend that out a little bit more. And that's got a little bit of the colour that was on the acrylic block on there as well, which it's actually quite nice, sort of adds to the vintage feel. I'm then going to take a little bit of mowed lawn. I need to find a darker colour just to add to the red. So I'm going to take a little bit of the mowed lawn. I'll just bit of the mowed lawn because that's a little bit darker, just to give a little bit more depth with your oxides. If you don't want to use the oxides, you could quite easily, no problem at all, just use your VersaFine clairs and don't do any colouring, just literally stamp them with the VersaFine clairs if you wanted to. Just going to pick up a little bit more of the darker mowed lawn. To make it a little bit darker, let's grab a little bit of water. And then just use that tinted water to sort of blend everything out. Again, we'll just clear that up. At least I'm just sort of working with, the important thing is to work with clean water, so you don't have any contamination. So now this is the seedless preserves. And can you see there, I flooded that a little bit. There we go. And that is just sort of a wash of the colour. But don't worry about this here, because I will be adding more anyway, just around the outside. So let's just take a little bit more of that seedless preserves, and let's give a little bit more depth to that. So it's got more depth on that light bulb. And it just takes a little bit just to build up the depth on your light bulb. Let's just add a little bit of that lining. And it's nice if each one looks a little bit different. So you just need to give each of them time to sort of rest a little bit. So let's just give that a little bit of a, there we go. So I want to add a little bit more colour. So just on the red one, I'm just going to add some lumberjack plaid, just to give a little bit more. A little bit more depth, just so that it's a little bit darker. And you can see when you just let the layer dry a little bit, you can get a little bit more depth in there. And then you can just use the brush that's slightly tinted with colour, just to drag that out a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is use the wipe. Just give my brush a clean. Can you see that's got that red in there? And I don't want that mixed at the moment. So now I'm going to come back to the spiced marmalade. A little bit of water. I'm going to come back to the spiced marmalade and just add a little bit more of the colour of the spiced marmalade, just to give it a little bit more depth. And what I can do is I can take the candied apple. Let's take the candied apple. I won't clean my brush. I'll just pick up a bit of the orange and red, just to bring a little bit more depth in there. Just use my water just to blend. And this is what I like about the Oxides. You can just blend that colour out. So I can go back to the spiced marmalade. Oh, that's on here, Tracy. So I can go back to the spiced marmalade and just blend that out just a little bit, which works quite nicely, just to give it a little bit more depth. Now with the watered down water, let me just see if it's watered down enough. I'm just going to add a little bit of shading. I could probably get away with just touching the light bulb and dragging a bit of the colour out. Let me just drag that out to nothing. So you just want to drag that out to nothing. Don't know what them bits are. So I'm just dragging that out a little bit just so that it's dragged out to nothing. So I'm going to clean all this up and I'm going to go to the bluey colour. Getting all my ink pads mixed up now. So I'm going to go to the prize ribbon. Let's make sure that we're working clean. So I'm now using the prize ribbon to go into the blue light bulb, and just remember that you just need to just use a little touch of that darker colour and just add a little touch of that darkness. Use your tinted water just to blend that out. And then I'm just going to use the tinted water, and hopefully there might be enough on this one just to drag out a little bit of that colour, just to give it a little bit of a shadow just with the blue. Let me lift that up for you just so that you can see that. Then we'll wipe that up. Then we'll go to the red, which we should, because it's quite a strong colour, should be able to just drag a little bit of that out, a little bit of that, just for a little bit of shading. Then we'll take the mowed lawn. I think I'm going to add a little bit more depth with the mowed lawn. It's still got a little bit of red in. There we go. So sort of make sure that you work clean. It's important that you do work clean. And you can keep doing this and going round as much as you want. I quite like the watery effect because it sort of looks very, very vintage. So let's see if we can drag a little bit of this green out so that it's a little bit of a shadow. There we go. And we'll just clean that up. And then we'll take a little bit of the seedless preserves again, a little bit of water. And it's lovely because it's just a nice relaxing thing to do. We don't want to mix that with any other colour. So let's make sure we're working clean, which is very important. And I love the fact that the more water that you add, you just get a fab watery effect just on the bauble, and it just looks wonderful. Now let's just pick up a load of water and just blend that out. Okay, now we should be able to touch this and just drag a little bit. There we go. Just drag a little bit of that colour out. That's it. So we'll just clean those up. Let's give them a clean. I'm going to need a cleaner bit of kitchen roll, I think, for my next step. There we go. And then I'm just going to spritz the light bulbs with water so that they've got a really watery feel to them. And they bleed a little bit. I want them to bleed a little bit. So just let that moisture do its thing. You end up with, it's funny, you think you're spritzing on the card and it goes all over the non-stick craft sheet. So I just want you to give that a few moments, just so it's sort of, it has a watery feel to it, and then just blot that. Just give that a blot. Okay, you can see that you pick all those colours up, but it will give it a really sort of watery vintage feel. It really does give it that vintage feel. So let me just give that a little bit of a dry. Now you can let that card dry naturally if you wish. I'm just going to give it a dry to speed things up a little bit. And then I'm going to turn that over and give the reverse a dry, just so that's flattened a little bit. And I really do sort of like the touch of vintage that it's got to it. It's really lovely. So what I'm going to do now is, where's my gold pen? And a little bit of a black pen. So I'm just going to use a gold gel pen, and I'm just going to add a little bit sort of gold, just sort of onto the top of the light bulb with the gel pen. A little bit of gold up there. There we go. And then just to give a little bit more definition, I'm sort of going to add a little bit of black under the gold line, just to give that a little bit of definition. I'm sort of touching the card very lightly, really lightly, just to give it a little bit more definition, just so that you can see that, just so it gives it a little bit more definition. Right, so what I want to do now, I think I'm going to do it with, let's just move that out of the way with my pencil. Moving things out of the way in this room is not that easy. Have we got like a, don't want to, yes, I think I'm going to use my Inktense pencil, and I'm just sort of going to add a very light line without the bit of debris that's just on there. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that Inktense pencil. And what I can do then is, because it's Inktense, I can just blend it out a little. So let's take that, which has got a bit of purple on there. We don't want that, do we? So let's just make sure we're working clean. Take a little bit of the moisture off, and hopefully we can just blend this out. Let's have a little bit more water. And it's better to add a little bit of water, because it's just means you don't add too much. Let me just go down here. Just to blend that out a little bit. So I'm just going to use a little bit more water and just blend that out. Just so that it's blended out a little bit and you've got the light bulbs connected in some way. So what I'm going to do then is take my text stamp, which is TE11. So let's take the TE11. Could do with a little scrap of paper or card. So I'll just grab a little scrap of card. Do I want to do it in the colours or do I want to do it in grey? Let's do it in the colours and have a bit of fun. So I'm going to take... No, I'm not. It just looks too disjointed then. Do you like how I talk to myself thinking, yes, I am, no, I'm not. So I'm going to take Versafine Clair Morning Mist. There we go. And on my website at the moment, I don't really do huge Black Friday deals, but there is 15% off gift vouchers. So you could buy a gift voucher for £50 and get 15% off, but then you can spend it straight away if you wish. You can spend it after Christmas, you can spend it before Christmas, or however you wish, or just as a gift. That's actually applied automatically. You can just put whatever amount you want to in your basket, and then 15% is applied from the gift voucher, is taken off. So then when you buy your products, you've got a £50 voucher that you've only paid £42 for. So you get that 15% off then. So I've just taken off the first generation, and then I'm going to add the second generation with my finger just to the card so that it looks very watery. Isn't that text lovely? So I'm using the Morning Mist, ink that up, and what I'm doing is pressing very lightly to sort of remove the first generation, and then I'm going to add the second generation, and it sort of coordinates really nicely with that sort of watery effect. So then let's take the Morning Mist again, take off that first generation, and we'll just apply the second generation. Just works really nicely, still gives it that vintage feel. So take off the first generation, and you could easily use this piece of card and put the stencil light bulb over the top of there. So just add a little bit of light stamping there, and again a little touch more, just add that here, and then let's add a little bit of the stamping there, just so that you've got that little touch of the vintage sort of text. It looks really nice. So I don't really need to wipe that. I'm just going to dab it so that when I put it in my packaging, it's not going to sort of give me a mess. Not that it matters because they're well used. Right, let's move that to... Sort of do try to keep the stamps in some kind of order, believe it or not. So I want to add some touches of white to this, and really you should wait to add your touches of white until everything is dry, because you can just try to add it and it won't work, because I've added a bit of the Posca there, and I'm just going to dab it just so that it's a bit more not quite so sort of perfect, and then just going to add a little bit of white here so that it doesn't look too perfect. Just scribbling a little bit of white just on the light bulb, just so that it's got those highlights. I love adding the touches of white, sort of, it really sort of adds something to your light bulb, it really does. And then a little bit of white here. The touches of white really sort of help that. And just so that these pop a little bit more, have I got them out or no? Honestly, you wouldn't believe how many colours I've got here. And just so it pops a little bit more, I'm going to add some watered down hickory smoke. So let's take some watered down hickory smoke, and we're just going to go around. Let's pick up that water just with the hickory smoke, just to give a little bit more of a shading. And the good thing is you don't have to worry about the grey stamping, because that is a permanent ink. So you're sort of tickling that grey on there just to give a little bit more shading to the card, because it'll just make those colours pop a little bit more by just adding a little bit of the grey. Can you see I'm just sort of tickling that on there, not being too precise. And I've not really got much water there either, so I'm just sort of tickling a little bit of that grey on there, just so that everything pops a little bit more. Just gives that shadowed effect a little bit more. I will hold that up for you so you can see. Just works a little bit more and gives it a little bit more shading. It's very subtle, but in real life you will definitely see it. So what I'm going to do then is just take a little tiny touch of my Inktense pencil just around each light bulb, just a tiny little touch. And I'm just going to touch that just to give a little bit more shading. So I'm just touching that just to give that a little bit of shading. And then if you wanted to, you could quite easily make that as if it was a Christmas card or a birthday card. It's entirely up to you if you wanted to do that. I'm going to add a little bird. So I'm going to use Garden Elements TE30. There he is, a little wren. And it's up to you where you add your wren. I'm going to, so you could just keep like this if you wanted to. I'm going to add, am I going to add the wren? Oh, hang on a minute, there's these two. Everything's going everywhere. Two blackbirds as well. Let's have a look at these two blackbirds. Let's have a look. I want to add some wording as well, so I'm playing around a little bit because the wording, I'm going to add them here. And I'm going to add them Do you like all the decisions you have to make? And I'm going to have them as blackbirds, so I'm going to use my Nocturne ink. You could stamp them in the grey if you wished. And if you wanted to, you could take, let's have a look. You could take the clocks from here and you could add them onto the birds so that they've got a little bit of text. So, for instance, like, let's just stamp a little bit of the clock on that one. And then a little bit of the clock on that one. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out, because you know you can just pen those back in again. So just give that black a little bit of time just to absorb onto the surface of the card. Oh, love it, look at this. So now you've got a little bit of the clock, my camera's going give over, onto the birds, and it takes a little bit of the black away and they look the sort of blacky grey. So just wonderful. Just love that. So I'm then going to add a little bit of the shading here. So let's take a little bit of that shading and we'll just shade just so that you can see that they are grounded. Let's put those little blackbirds back. Move the light bulb out of the way. And then I'm going to add, she says some Posca pen, I couldn't see it then. I'm going to add some splatters of Posca pen. Just sort of around the light bulbs. Let's just clean our area a little bit. I've got bits of paint and bits of oxide, just so that you can see, let's hold that up, you can see that you've got those white splatters on there as well, which works really nicely. And then we can add this to a black mat, but we'll just give that a few moments and we'll just stamp out the sentiment. It seems a shame to use that one because I could put the light bulb stencil over that text. So I shall save that. So what am I going to use? So let's just place, here it is, I couldn't think where it was. So on TE25, let's place that one back on TE25. And then on TE24, I love some of the sentiments on here. TE24, you've got spark of creativity, original, artistic, imaginative, unlock your creativity. So I'm going to put spark of creativity, and it's not too bulky sentiment wise, it's just a little bit of something. So I'm going to ink that in my Nocturne ink, and it doesn't need much of an inking, and it doesn't need much pressing either. So just grab those scissors and we'll just cut that out. There we go, so it's nice and sort of fine, spark of creativity. So it works nicely with the card, it's sort of not too bulky. So you can see we've got our card. Let's add our sentiment. And I love the light bulbs in the different colours. It's just to show as well that if you've got a silhouette stamp, you don't have to add the silhouette in black. It can be in different colours. Let me just have a look. Just going to place that there. I didn't put it there because on this occasion, I didn't want to sort of split up the light bulbs. I quite like them in their own right, standing out like that. I'll add a bit of shading shortly underneath. Just get that adhesive working. So I've got a black mat, which is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. Just going to give that a couple of seconds just to grab hold. For once, I actually let the Posca pen dry, which is a rarity for me. But I just love those birds with that little clock stamped on. I'm then going to add this to a 5 by 7 inch card blank. So we can add this here, and it really sort of sets that off nicely. I don't know how many times I've said my glue's running out, but I still keep getting some more out of there. So the card is 5 by 7. I don't have to worry about Posca pen because I've actually let it dry for once. There we go. And then let's add a little bit of shading just underneath the sentiment. And whoa, I've actually let that dry as well. Wonders never cease. So let's take a little bit of water and we'll just drag that out. There we go. Just wipe that water up. And if we pick the card up, I just think that's lovely in those colours. Now, if you wanted to, you could quite easily put Happy Christmas. And it, you know, it's just lovely. I really love that. You could stamp inside these if you wished as well. But, you know, I really enjoyed that. And I love the birds with a little bit of the clock on. So I hope you enjoy giving that a little try. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.